They say when you wear Black Power Media gear, you can accomplish anything. You play any and every position. Coaching, to kicking, to receiving, to running and juking. And, oh my goodness, I see that again in slow motion. Get off me. And you're going to have a lot of haters coming at you, but what you got to do is you got to shake them off, and get to your goal and accomplish it. And when that's done, it's a beautiful thing. I'm talking about going hard, extra, for that extra point. And when it's done beautifully, you talking about touchdown. Oh, and the crowd goes wild and they're celebrating with you and everything. Man, let's see that again. Nice.
Black Power Media, baby. That's how we do it.
Now go to blackpowermedia.org and get you some of that gear. Empower yourself today. Yeah.
I mix what I like. What's up, world? Welcome to this edition of I Mix What I Like live right here on BPM. I'm Jared Ball. I am in my office. I don't have my green screen. My office is a mess. So I'm doing the best I can with the setup. I'm going to beg you all to forgive me as you all jump on in here. Hit the like, the share, the subscribe, and all that kind of good stuff. Doing this in between classes. HBCU 4-4 life. That's what I live. So, again, please bear with me. But that said, I'm very excited to have this conversation today with our guest this afternoon, who I've had the pleasure of coming across separately, and I'm going to ask her about that in a second. And then we lost touch, and then we got reconnected via the assistance of those supporting the show. So shout out to Josh and Aaliyah who have helped put this together. And so anyway, without further ado, I'm very excited to bring to the stage, so to speak, Clarissa Brooks, who among many other things is a freelance writer based in Atlanta. And as she says on her Twitter page profile, interested in exploring the nuance of music, people, politics, and the dirty stuff nobody wants to look at. So without further ado, Clarissa Brooks, welcome to the program. It's good to catch up with you again. How are you? Greetings.
Same. I'm good. I definitely need to update that, so appreciate you.
Oh, you need to update? Okay, so what would the update be? What would the update be?
It will probably just be a sharper analysis. I would probably just, state that I'm an abolitionist and talk about the importance of cultural criticism and all that good stuff. I wrote that when I was like a little baby freshman, so it needs to be revived.
Okay, all right. Well, no, so I'll have to add that to the list of things I want to ask you about. But before we do move on, let me start with what I mentioned a minute ago. Help me remember, we were on a hip hop panel together, apparently, right?
Yes.
And then, yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, we did the No Name Book Club hip hop panel. It was me, you, and Latifah Abdurrahib.
So I was trying to go back, and my emails are not clear enough. So what happened on the panel? Because I know what I remember leaving with was I wanted to link up with you afterwards, but we didn't. We lost track. Then you reached back out. I think I had missed that, and then through I think Aaliyah helping us get this set up, we reconnected. So what do you remember from that panel, if anything?
I think the book we were talking about was, I can't even remember the book, but I know we talked about hip hop. I know we talked about like our top 5.
Okay.
And both you and Hanif made jokes about me being young, which is very fair. And it was just a really good panel. And we talked a lot. It was like 2021. So we were talking about hip hop and pandemic and kind of like industry leads. Just culture understandings of well-being.
So who is in your top 5?
Ooh, I think
who is that now?
I think it's still similar. Wayne, ODB.
That's right. Now I'm remembering.
Yeah. Because I am from North Carolina, so all my top 5 were Southern, and I was just like, these are the caveats. Wayne, ODB. I think I said Nikki / Foxy Brown.
Okay.
That's 3. I can't remember the last 2. Oh, Andre 3000. And then I might have said Busta.
That's a pretty good list. Okay. Yeah, now that makes sense. Now I can see why I was like, I need to build with her some more.
Yeah. Life happened, and emails, they exist, they don't exist. So
they don't exist. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I reached back out, because I have a book project that I wanted to chat with you about. So.
Oh, right on. So we can start there if you like, because I did go back and I was reviewing some of your work from your website, which is linked in the show description. But I don't recall seeing anything about a forthcoming book. So if you want to start there, let's do that.
There's not. So the book in proposal is that I've been working on for the past couple of years is about sexual violence in HBCUs. So not a light topic, but I really would love to get that book into the world. So my goal was to reach out to you and kind of just do some conversation about that, because I think that's been the crux of my writing, is around sexual violence in Black institutions. So that's what I've been.
Oh, I would very much like to, however you see me helping, I'm down. In fact, it's weird. I don't know the details, but I don't know the details, but someone just informed me that a young woman who was in my class who hadn't been showing up had dropped, in part because of her mental health. Mm-hmm. And obviously there could be many reasons for that, but I do know that of the list of things that is an issue on these campuses is sexual violence. So it wouldn't, I hate to say, surprise me to find out. So what I was going to ask you about, because you've written a number of things about HBCUs and you were following a little bit of the Howard University. What makes that an issue, that particular issue, a focus for you?
Yeah, so I went to Spelman College 2014, 2018, and was a student organizer. Hillary Clinton came to Clark Atlanta 2015, and I was one of the students that interrupted her, along with the organization that I used to be a part of. And that kind of catalyzed me into movement space, specifically abolitionists, like anarchist, super left spaces. So outside of just being like a student organizer, left school for a little bit and then came back to Atlanta, attempted to graduate, didn't. But I was really deep in that world and really deep in Black movement and like Black abolitionist anarcho spaces. So since then have kind of pivoted back to writing, work at a publication as an editor. I'm kind of just always trying to lead with that Tony Cade idea of like cultural work being the thing that should lead people towards their own liberation and justice.
Right on. We're using Josh Meyer's new book, and I know she figures prominently in that. So we're on our way to getting to her chapter this semester. It's very strong and very helpful. And I am biased that it was written by an HBCU professor, which I know a little bit about is not an easy task. So I'm very, again, as I said to him, not to be condescending, proud of him and happy to use that work as much as possible. So, but again, the idea though is that HBCUs are oases for Black students, so is there a particular set of research that you're following that is talking about the prevalence of sexual assault and violence on HBCU campuses versus PWIs, or is it just that you wanted to focus particularly on HBCUs, as you said, having come out of one, or?
Yeah, I think that's the hard part. I've been in two different spaces. As a student organizer, I used to be a part of an outside school organization called Know Your Nine, where I kind of got all of my Title IX training as an organizer, did some like DC policy stuff. But there are no specific, there's no specific research I mean, from my understanding, I've only found one research article about it that focuses on HBCU students and sexual violence, but the research is really slim. There's very few folks and people that dedicate their time to this specific niche of sexual violence. So it's hard. I know like one other reporter that talks about it. I know that one research article and folks who do pieces on it. So I have kind of my like litmus group of things that I look towards, and I'm always looking for more, but it's not super well researched. The Me Too movement, that Tarana Burke, the organization that she started, they have an HBCU and Sexual Violence Fellowship. That's pretty cool. But yeah, it's just not very researched. And I think for me, I got into organizing because of sexual violence. There was a huge sexual violence movement at Morehouse when I was a student. So like there was a case every single year that was getting students riled up, like meeting outside the dorms by the hundreds. And so I got brought into the work pretty quickly. And so I've just been dedicated to it because I think even looking at the work of like the Black University and like the Black Freedom School idea was also an organization called Black University too. There's so many HBCU students who want to have our institutions live up to the standard that they say that they live up to. And oftentimes they don't. And yeah, a lot of my work is like reminding survivors, reminding student organizers, like these schools are businesses. Profit is profit. And even though that's heartbreaking for a lot of us because these institutions become communities for us and safe havens, they also, you know, have to make a buck. So it's about getting students to push for what they deserve on these campuses as they, are there.
Right on, right on. Okay, so I'm happy to come back to any of that. And as I said, however you see me helping you, please just make it happen. Let me know. I'm very interested. So I did want to ask you a little bit about, so you've adjusted you're going to adjust your bio, but as it stood now, I did want to ask you I did have a question here to ask you what you meant by the dirty stuff that nobody wants to look at, that you talk about. And in the context of asking you how because you write a lot about pop culture. In fact, I'm going to be using one of your essays this semester in my HipHop class, but we'll come back to that. But I wanted to ask you this initial broad question about how you engage pop culture, because as I see it, it's a psychological propaganda battlefield. How do you engage when you're talking about pop culture? And then what is this dirty stuff that nobody wants to talk about?
Yeah, I would also call it a battlefield, especially being a child of the internet. Yeah, it is definitely that. I think the thing that I'm always struggling with is the ideas of like visibility, wanting to be seen, but also understanding that like the algorithm and the internet profits off of that desire to be seen. And similarly, how that reflects in like how young people interact with pop culture. I think the reason why I do a lot of pop culture criticism is because there are these striations in how people understand pop culture, like, it's just fluff. It's just celebrities doing stuff, when it's like there are always systems intertangled in everything. And oftentimes I want my work to make the invisible hand of the elite more visible to folks when I'm writing.
Yeah, right on, right on. So one of the issues that I know, or one of the people that I know you talked a lot about, and that has moved you, and that you have a number of pieces on your website about, is Bell Hooks.
Yes.
Could we come back? We didn't have you on at the time of her passing, but I would like to ask you about that. You've written a couple pieces about that, and then in general, specifically, I follow up with some of the criticism we've gotten here around even raising her name. But yeah. So I'll ask you about that. But talk to me and us about how Bell Hooks figures into your work.
Yeah, I think I'm just a student of Black feminism, especially being at Spelman and the Women's Research Center. Like, I mean, being taught by Beverly Guy Sheftall is just like, it's the beginning and the end. Like she'll just casually mention like, yeah, me and Alice Walker like getting dinner tomorrow. We're just like, girl, what are you talking about? So, you know, having Words of Fire as a text that was, I mean, necessary from sophomore to senior year. Bell Hooks was always really a part of that. And she also was really critical to how I understand criticizing pop culture. So Bell Hooks and Tony Cade. I feel like Tony Cade, I feel more politically aligned with. Bell Hooks gets some deserved criticism. So
well, what do you mean when you say that? I mean, because you know, around here at least, a lot of it was the reaction that we had. Well, I'll speak for myself. The reaction that I got when I shared some praise for her work, and some particularly around my earlier development around the relationship that she wrote a lot about the culture and media and criticism and all of that, is that she was seen as being hostile to Black men, towards Black nationalist politics, and having not read enough of her to, you know, I haven't read everything that a lot of people were bringing to me in terms of the critiques that they had of her, and and it became kind of clear that my own engagement with her work was more narrow and limited to certain aspects that spoke more to what I was interested in working on. I had to, you know, I kind of had to put my hands up and say, look, I'm not really clear on the breadth of her argument and her critique, but what was being shared with me often was this apparent hostility towards Black men and Black nationalism. Does that resonate with you, or where do you see room for criticism?
Yeah, I feel like I could definitely understand the parts about Black nationalism. She talks about community, especially in her Love series, pretty loosely. She never really grounds it in a nationalist identity. So that makes a lot of sense. Her hostility towards Black men, I would say, makes sense to me. I would just counteract it with her book about loving Black men, where often to me, she feels harsher to Black women than anybody else. Like she's very strict, especially on celebrities, as she should be, but she goes pretty hard for Black women who move against her purported like ideas about what a strong Black national like feminist ideology should be. So yeah, but I also feel like I haven't read super deep into her criticisms of Black men, so maybe I'm also out the loop on that. I'd say my criticisms are that she does a good job of avoiding talking about queerness. And that's always been interesting to me. And I think about this often when it comes to any Black feminist elders, even Toni Morrison, who like had an article where she was quite transphobic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she wrote a piece. Yeah, she wrote a piece, I think, for the New York Times, using like slurs and stuff. Yeah, so I know that my ancestors are deeply flawed. I take them for what they've offered and leave the rest. And I think that's why I appreciate her for the part of my politics that she holds, but not all of it. Yeah, so I think that's often I'm thinking like, you know, even Audre Lorde, like there are plenty of folks that are like, Audre Lorde had some moments and some times where she was pretty against kink communities and things like that. So
and so then how do you see when you say that you kind of rock with Bambara's politics a little bit more? What draws you that way?
Yeah, she feels the most rooted in the earth to me, even just her syntax, how she writes sentences specifically for me. And also her criticisms of culture feel more related to how I see the world. She has an essay about Crooklyn that was lengthy, but it's good, where she's talking about, you know, the fantasies that Spike Lee really ruminates inside of. And those are a lot of things that pulled me into his work and also drew me out as a student when I met him. And he had put out that Chirac movie, and he did a student meet and greet, and he was horrible to students.
Oh, well, let's stay there for a second, because I have my own, you know, laundry list of Spike hate and critique. But what do you mean he was horrible to students? What does that mean? What happened?
Oh, I mean, like, I want to say this is 2015, 2016 when that Chirac movie came out. yeah, there were students from Chicago that were like, yeah, we really don't like the title of this movie. He was like, I don't care. There were Black students from Spelman that were like, you know, this movie being about sexual violence and how, like, you know, if it ignores the idea of like women being assaulted. He was also like, I don't care. Like, he really wanted the event to be the Spike Lee show, to like adore him.
Well, how could sexual violence be a topic for him if I remember what had me turn off the series was the solution in the film in the series was women should withhold sex.
Exactly. And you know, his whole thing was like, oh, this is based off of like the Greek play and this isn't really mine, all those kinds of things. And yeah, and also, you know, he's beholden to Morehouse. He built their sports journalism department. So yeah, I get why he thought it was going to be the Spike Lee show. But I think he also forgot that, you know, HBCUs are known for student dissent. So I think he, you know, his PR team gave him the wrong information for that day. So that was interesting. And seeing that and then reading Tony K. Bambar's work, it really clicked for me when I was like, yeah, this man is actually like super invested in the state in a certain kind of way that shows up in his aesthetics and his work.
So that's interesting. I have not read that essay from her. I'll have to find that. And if
it's great.
Because, oh man, because following, well, maybe not following, but paralleling Bell Hooks' own commentary on that film, I thought it was one of the few from him that I could not be mad at.
Yeah. Oh no, and I think it's his best. I think it's my favorite still, even after reading that essay. But I think reading that essay, I could see the gaps, not the gaps in the movie, but the gaps in Spike's politic. Whereas they feel much more evident and clear to me in School Days. School Days is like him at his ripest to me. But yeah, but I still love Kirkland. It's still one of my favorites. I just, you know, can see it a little bit clearer now. Yeah,
I definitely have to go back because I remember Bell Hooks's support for it was that line in that meth documentary where she says that she told her she had to tell her white friends that the problem you had with the film was that it was just a movie about a Black mother who dies from cancer, and you all don't find that interesting or compelling, like you know. And it was like that to me was bars, because it was like, I love the film.
Mm-hmm.
I've always enjoyed watching the film, and anyway, but I have to, I'm sure there's a lot I did miss. I have to read.
It's really good. Even I think that scene in Crooklyn where they're on that rig where the two junkies are high and they're moving towards the camera.
Oh, right.
One of my scenes, one of my favorites. So,
I mean,
it's good stuff.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But yeah, anybody, if you or anyone gets to that essay first, send me a link. I'll definitely.
It's in one of her essay collections. If I can find it before I get off of here, I'll definitely share it with you, because I just tried to Google it.
All right, right on. Okay, so before we get to anything heavier, I did want to ask you about this essay that I'll be using in one of my classes, because I'm not as I do feel my age when it comes to some of the more recent hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm pulling this thing up here, and then you're also using language that I just feel very old now, and I just will not use. I'm not going to use publicly
How
anymore.
old are you, Dr. Ball? That's probably the
I'm 51.
Oh, well.
I'm 51, and but I got to tell you, I've become a cliche in many ways. I feel myself publicly, at least in public work and classroom work, not willing to use language I would happily use in private life, or at once upon a time I would have been very comfortable using. But nowadays I feel very differently. So when I was going back to look at this, I was like, I'll leave it to her to, but really what I was mostly interested in, because this isn't really the focus. What I'm saying is the focus isn't really the focus of this piece here, about Flo Milli, who I've not heard anything of. So I was just wanting to see that. But this just sort of how you create this lineage of what I'll just say for now is P rap, because I'm too grown and But
I appreciate the demureness.
I'm not even proud of it. I'm just
Right.
telling you where I am. I'm just being
Right.
real with where I am right now.
I understand.
But this lineage of Cardi B to Megan Thee Stallion to Flo Milli, Kylie and Lakia. I don't know about them either. I don't know about Young Baby Tate. I don't know about so then you say where I do feel like I'm the grandparent, because you're saying the grandchild of these legends, like of the grandparents. I'm assuming you're saying here of Lil' Kim, Trina, Missy, right? Am I reading that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right, because these are the grandchildren of the legends, right? That you describe here, saying that it's rap that comes equipped with a sharp eye for sexual prowess, deprioritizing men, and getting to the money. Now, when I see that, at least some of that, I'm always unsure to what extent any of that is an advance or demonstrating some sort of power. But I did want to, where I'm stuck, and then you can say we'll go where you want to go, but where I'm stuck is just with that whole lineage. So could you talk about what you're seeing happen in this passage from the grandparents down to these whippersnappers?
I'm also sure Lil' Kim, Missy, Trina would be very offended by that.
Oh,
I know they would be so mad at me. And I would also more specifically include Gangsta Boo in that too. Gangsta Boo, who just recently passed. There isn't. I feel like you've heard of Ice Spice. That's the little light-skinned girl with the little red hair. She's like a New York. Okay. There's a rapper named Ice Spice who's kind of on the scene right now. I mean, her imagery is Gangsta Boo verbatim, like poses and everything, but she sounds completely different. She's coming from like the New York drill scene, so she's a super soft voice. Similar.
Oh, I see. Okay. I'm sorry. I was just looking up the name. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yes. I mean, the red hair is a little disorienting, but her album cover is very Gangsta Boo like. But that lineage feels important because I don't even know how old she is either. I'm pretty sure she's like 21, maybe 22. But that lineage feels important because I think often with internet culture and with just media consumption, a lot of folks can be like, Megan Thee Stallion is the most prominent rapper who's ever done this on earth. When even Megan herself names, I learned from Gangsta Boo, I learned from 3 6 Mafia. One of her lead producers is Juicy J. Like, she oftentimes pushes Houston rap and Memphis rap in production in her work. So I'm naming that lineage because the artists are doing that, and more specifically, their producers are doing that in their production, in their credits. I just know the internet loves to make somebody the first of something, when in reality, Flo Milli is an amalgamation of a lot of things. And regional too. I think once artists get really big, they kind of lose their sound to attract bigger audiences. But I think Flo Milli, Cali, who's from California, Lakia is from Milwaukee, which is having a really important rap scene right now. And Young Baby Tate, who's from Atlanta, they are good because they study women rappers. And I think oftentimes people don't give them that credit of being well studied.
Well, please encourage people to study Maimouna Yusuf, who I will continue to argue is the baddest on the planet, regardless of gender, whatever. I don't really care. And anyway, and since so many of those names that you mentioned, I'm not familiar with. I just
I try my best to get the kids to Google. I don't know if they want to. Queen Latifah is having a moment. She's having a moment.
Oh yeah.
Background, not with rap per se, but she was at New York Fashion Week, and I've just seen a lot of people like playing Ladies First and her first album a lot. So I think it's happening as people are celebrating Missy. They're also like, we also need to celebrate Queen Latifah too. So it's happening. A lot of young people.
That's wild, but I see that as such a contradiction and a struggle for me. So even as I'm watching this new PBS series that is bothering me, it's. So that's interesting that you say that. So if Queen Latifah is having this resurgent moment and people are going back and looking at Ladies First, are they making any connections between what has changed since Ladies First? there's an absenting of those politics for sure over her career. So anyway.
Yeah, I think that reckoning is happening in the conversation about colorism in hip hop. I've seen a lot of people talking about what happened to Lil Kim, pictures of her as a young person and pictures of her now, and they're like, what happened to her? And folks are like, she was being abused, she was being treated terribly, and more young artists. There's a Texas rapper named Mona Leo who kind of broke a conversation a few weeks ago about colorism that really got people upset with her when she was really just naming pretty clearly, like, dark skinned women rappers have had it hard for a very long time, and that there's a reason why light skinned rappers move with a certain kind of ease, good or not really about talent, more about marketability. And so that's been important. I don't know if the politics of even the crew that Queen Latifah comes from, Moni Love, I don't think the politics of that are coming with it, but I think the reasons why these folks got ignored, especially Missy and Lil Kim, folks are starting to sit with, these were the greatest rappers of their time, really beating out a lot of the men. Why was that? And how is that still happening in this moment? Which is why a lot of artists like Megan, Cardi don't want to be co-signed by men. A lot of them are like, I want to be good on my own. I don't want to be in a crew.
And that's interesting because Lil Kim, I would have assumed, would have benefited colorism vis-a-vis Foxy Brown, for instance, who am I thinking of? So that's
but I think she started skin bleaching pretty deep into things. I think around the time Biggie died, she started skin bleaching, and it's pretty evident in pictures of her. And Foxy Brown, from my understanding, never did that. So yeah, I could definitely say Lil Kim was I've got to aesthetically do things that'll make me more marketable and just more desirable.
No, if anything, they were, Foxy Brown was said to have had that built-in advantage of the what is it, that semi-Asian look.
Yeah.
So it made her more exotic, quote unquote.
Yeah, there's a lot of desirability things there that are still pretty present. But I hope your students like the article. I feel like I might have stronger pieces in there, but I hope they enjoy it.
Well, I mean, I was really trying to find. I'm really just trying to find contemporary discussion of contemporary rap that dovetails with certain issues that we're obviously going to get to. Some of which obviously you cover already, but I'm happy to continue to look through your catalog and find stronger pieces. Or if you feel that there's, you can always send me something, and we can always arrange for you to speak with the class too. I would love to have that, at some point, perhaps too. So that would.
I feel like if your students make you a playlist, you'll be shocked.
Oh no, maybe I should do something earlier, because the final project always involves a quote unquote mixtape that they're supposed to make, which is obviously nowadays just a playlist. But I should probably start sooner. We always start the semester with the top 5. I always ask everybody their top 5. But I don't think many of these names that you're mentioning were on those lists. I don't recall hearing about Nicki, maybe.
Yeah.
But but none of the newer names that you're talking about, in terms of the women, the newer names are Kendrick or J. Cole, or at least the ones I remember. That's the but anyway.
We're even younger than me, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, well, that's true. They keep coming in at that same young age.
Same age. Yeah, bless you for teasing me.
Well, so then one question, and then unfortunately, my time is a little bit short because I have a 1:00 class. But what I did want to ask you, now that you mentioned it, what does abolition mean to you, and how is that factoring into your work now? And because there is obviously a growing, I don't know if movement is the right word yet, but and then there's some debate around the definition and the application of a definition. So how do you engage?
Yeah, so I became an abolitionist when I was in college, a part of that student organization I mentioned. And so my understanding of abolition is the undoing and unraveling of all forms of prison policing, courts, and caging. So ICE, prisons, youth detention centers, all of it, and policing as an institution needs to be eradicated and erased. I've held that for a long time. I've struggled with the implementation of it when it comes to community conflict. I think that's something I'm still trying to move through, but no matter what, I'd rather do that work intercommunally and still understand that like policing as an institution needs to be done away with. So that's my understanding of it. And that's coming from the work of Ruth Wilson Gilmore, Miriam Kaba, Ida B. Wells. So yeah, it's a lineage of Black feminist writers who that's coming from. Yeah, I think the pandemic really kind of cracked open if I was really about it, just because of the state of the world and the state of everybody. But I still feel pretty clear about that. Also because I live in Atlanta, I used to live in a part of town called Pittsburgh. And the shooting of Rayshard Brooks by APD happened like down the street from me. So that was kind of my second gut check about if I was really about it. And it felt pretty clear to me that that's what I want for the world.
Are you involved with the Cop City struggle at all? Or are you following that? And is that something I don't know that I've seen you write about it yet? Is that something that's on your radar?
It's in the drafts. I'm trying to write a piece about it right now, specifically about Morehouse, because Morehouse, Spelman, all the AUC schools are on the Committee for Progress, which funds Cop City. And so the piece I'm working on now for my job, Rec and News, is to write about the student pushback against Cop City, what that means for HBCUs and what that means for the city. Yeah, because the mayor came to speak to the students and he like fell asleep on the stage while the students were talking. Like just really theatrical.
That's perfect though. That's,
you know what I mean? Yeah, things like that, especially as a writer and as a former student organizer, I'm like, you're making this too easy at this point. Like memes are being made, kids are making TikToks about it. I'm like,
and the flip side is also that they feel like they've won and that there's no powerful opposition. I mean, I think that's also to your, I agree with you, but I think it's also a sign that he doesn't feel threatened at all. It's like, we're just going to keep on moving through, and we'll shoot a couple here if we need to, whatever we got to do. And if I, when I wake up, we're going to be right back to it. I mean, that's yeah. Yeah. Okay. Right on. And then, so like, when I hear you talk about and self-describe and write about Black feminism, one of the first, unfortunately, thoughts that I have is a lot of online beefs, around defining Black feminism, the critique of certain, particularly male writers. Are you involved in any, or is there anyone that you've targeted as particularly flawed in their work as it regards Black feminism or critiques of Black feminism? Is anything we need to be, from your vantage point, alerted to?
Yeah, I've hung up my Twitter beef days, maybe summer of 2020, I think. But I'm aware, like I'm at this point, I think also just with like the size of my account, I'm good to block people, but I do see the discourse oftentimes. And I think I try to be better with who I'm citing and for what reason. Because I have this critique of the internet and the algorithm, I don't enjoy discourse online because it fuels the machine in a way that might be generative for like conversation in person, but like there's a white man making money off of us beefing. And to me, that's not the kind of conversation I want to have. If I'm going to have an issue with you and critique you, I want to do it DMs, emails, a phone call, because 2020 made me so aware of what the dark side of visibility can be, like, the data mining, like, I think that scared me into a place where I was like, you know, I don't want to be nice to everybody online, but I want to be more conscious about how I'm interacting, because we're not the only people watching this conversation. And if I'm really for this struggle, I want to have intentional conflict, and I want it to feel generative for both sides, even if we don't like each other. If we don't want to mess with each other, that's cool. But I don't want, you know, Elon Musk making money off of my beef.
Yeah, I have been thinking it's like become more personal. And then we got that thing about the two-factor or whatever notification thing, and they want us to sign up and do all this other stuff. I'm not doing any of that. I'm like, man, maybe I should just go ahead and it was making me really like it should just close this joint out.
Yeah. And I'm also just like, maybe it's just like where I come from, but like, you know, if we're really into it, we can fight if it's really that. And you know, that feels like a different kind of conflict to me, which it doesn't get to that too often. But I see the discourse. I'd be like, okay, heard. I do my little research. I make sure I cite appropriately and accurately. And, you know, I give caveats, like, especially about Toni Cade, any of the folks we just named, like, even Beverly Got Chef's Hall. I love her down, but she is not a perfect woman. And I make that very clear with my work. And if students are like asking questions about it, you know, I don't want to be an elder that's held to a standard that isn't real. I want to be a human being even after I'm gone. So I try to make that clear.
I've definitely had to settle my own temper down, because all I have at this point are wolf tickets, and I don't want anybody picking them up and taking me. So I don't want anybody. No fighting for me. Thank you very much. You all, if Clarissa wants to see you outside, you could do that. But don't come looking for me.
I want to be clear. I don't want to see you outside. I don't have time. Member or somebody I've known for 5+ years. We're not fighting.
Yeah, right on. I know that's right. Yeah, no, I don't want. Anyway, so there were a couple questions that I just wanted to pull up from the chat, and if others have any, please drop them back in there. Would Clarissa share a reading list? My response, not to speak for you, obviously, is always nowadays, you know, my citations are my reading list.
Yeah, always, yeah. And also, like, you know, reading list is very general. Like, I think if someone was like an abolition reading list, I could do that. I also know that like a lot of folks don't have time to like buy a book, read it. So like podcasts and audiobooks have been super helpful for me, even as I do that research about sexual violence in HBCU. So yeah, if there was a specific topic, I'll be down to make a little something.
And again, I'm definitely down to help you on that project, even if you need like like a background researcher or whatever. It doesn't have to be anything glorified. I'm very much interested in supporting that work. Anyway. Can Clarissa mention the HBCU or re-mention that fellowship that you mentioned that addresses HBCU sexual violence?
Yeah, so Me Too, the organization that Toronto Burke started, they have an HBCU fellowship. I don't know if the applications are still open, but if you go to metoo.org, they have a yearly fellowship with, I think, specific HBCUs, but I think within this last year, they opened it up to any and all HBCU students.
Oh, right.
It's a really good program.
Yeah, I'm going to have to let students know about it here as well, let folks know. Does Clarissa's work cite any of Greg Thomas's work on Lil' Kim and or eroticism in hip-hop Pan-African cultural production?
It doesn't. And I feel like I know who Greg Thomas is, but I could be wrong. I do know Bell Hooks did an interview with Lil' Kim. That's not great. It's not great.
It's not.
It's not. Like, she's like, you know, I mean, Bell Hooks kind of very publicly didn't love people who promote sex work. And she made that very clear in her interview with her, that she was like, you know, she dresses like a hussy, but I like her. And I was just, you know, I'll send you this interview. It was from.
Oh, I would be very interested in that.
Yeah. So I don't have that cited in my work, but I would love to.
So I know this is the 2009 book, Hip Hop Revolution in the Flesh, Power, Knowledge, and Pleasure, and Lil' Kim's Lyricism. I did read some of it at the time. I don't remember, but enough of it. But Thomas, I do know his more famous book, and I know he's written a lot, but I haven't. Let's see, what was it? Oh man, what was it? He wrote. Yeah, this is it. The Sexual Demon of Colonial Power. And I think you, at minimum, you'll appreciate his writing. I think Greg Thomas is brilliant. And again, I have to continue to point out that he does not mess with your boy. Like whatever I did, you know, he was not willing to forgive and or explain, by the way. But I will never stop appreciating his intellect. And so I would encourage you to check it out. I don't know to what extent, and you would agree or find it. You know, what I remember the broad memory of his critique is that too much of our condemnation of sex and sexuality is based in Western notions of sex and sexuality and the colonial relations that they contain. So it may not be that you all are on the same page in the end, because I think he was more favorable to what Lil' Kim was doing, and in a different kind of context. But anyway, obviously I won't speak for him, but I echo the comment that you should check it out. When I saw Greg, what I first thought was Greg Tate.
That's
Tate's
what I
work.
too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now Greg Tate's work, equally important.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I read his essay collection for the first time on a plane a few weeks ago. And his essay about Baraka.
Yeah.
Threw me into it.
Yeah.
My goodness.
All of his stuff, I always, he taught me the word panopticon.
Oh my.
And and we had a great interview that was lost forever due to videographer error, unfortunately. So, but anyway, yeah, that's good. Dr. Ball, do you share your top 5 in class? Of course, I share all my everything for public consumption. I share in class, all my politics, all of my top. Of course, they're going to hear my top 5. These students don't know anything. They don't know anything about hip hop.
What are your top 5?
So, like, always at the top right now is Maimouna Youssef and Pharoah Monch. I'm gonna go ahead and say De La, because rest in peace, Dave. And Stakes is High as a track and an album was among my favorite. And saw them live. I mean, just phenomenal. Who else would I put in there right now? I mean, if I'm being honest, I'd have to put somebody like Jay-Z in, just because I think his career, and up until the Black Album, he was among my favorite. I can't. This post-Black Album Jay-Z is not me, but And I like that you said Busta Rhymes. I think that's probably, going back to that panel we were on. That might have been where I was like, I got to make a mental note.
Yeah,
this Clarissa is sharp.
Yeah, I think you mentioned going to see. I think you and Hanif were talking about seeing Jay-Z live, and I was like, wow, the way I was not alive, but I just grew up in the South, so like Wayne is always going to be my number one.
Right.
And yes, he is moving like a Republican these days. I love him for who he was.
So is Jay-Z. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like Wait, is Clarissa looking for additional students, HBCUs to engage amid their book project? Yeah.
Okay. So that question is great, because I think that's why I wanted to talk with you. I think because I went to Spelman but haven't gone to grad school. I'm just nervous about survey things. I want to make sure I do the proper kind of research outside of just my journalistic ethics. That's well-rounded. So definitely, I'm going to be hitting up HBCU students to do the book project. I just want to make sure I use the right theories, use the right methods, and just kind of like want to make sure I have a breadth of folks I can reach out to make sure I'm not.
And are you reachable through your website? Because I've linked it in the show description. So yeah, you have your socials and.
Yeah, okay. My social is the best way to reach me. My Instagram is private, but my Twitter is public, and then I have my email on there. Last thing I was going to suggest before we close out, because I know you have to get to your class, is there is a book called A Taste for Brown Sugar, which is about Black women in pornography, written by Marielle Miller-Young. I read it in a Black queer studies class at Spelman, and it like changed my brain.
Wait a minute, say the title again. me.
Yeah, A Taste
Make a
for
note.
Brown Sugar.
Okay.
By Marielle Miller Young. And it's explicit and it's a large book, but it really opened my eyes to understanding sex work and aesthetics in hip hop culture and in music differently than just like, oh, you know, stereotypes of Black women. Like there's a whole industry behind it that gets explored and that benefits from it. So I think that really shaped my understanding of a lot of Black women.
Oh, I'm already blushing from the cover. Yeah, I have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really I am such a cliche of this old growing.
I mean, it's making me warm. It's when in the class, because my professor was so like, does this research all the time. They're like, I don't care. Open the book, look at the pictures. And my little childlike self was like, please, this is too much. But it's really good.
Okay.
Yeah, it gave me a lot of context.
Taste for Brown Sugar by Mary Miller. I'm sorry?
I was gonna ask lastly, are you from Baltimore? Are you from?
No. Well, no, not at all. I was born in DC and grew up in Howard County, Columbia, Maryland, specifically. So I always have to be clear. I like to claim DC as a birthplace because that's where I go-go music is in my blood.
My goodness.
But I have only attended school briefly in Baltimore and taught here in Baltimore. So I don't claim all respect due to the real Baltimore and DC representatives.
I'm a big fan of Baltimore as a city. So
Baltimore can be very dope, and there are a lot of wonderful people here.
The food in
There's
Baltimore.
always good food. There's always good. What I mean, to be real though, I mean, to be honest though, having seen a little bit of the world, wherever Black and brown people are, you can get a good meal.
Always.
And there's a lot of wonderful people here in Baltimore. I'm not a fan of the politics and a lot of what goes on here, but as is the case often, there's a lot of great people who suffer underneath a lot of bad, powerful people. So, a shout out to all of them, and shout out to you. And I want to thank again Josh and Aaliyah. I don't know who's exactly responsible for this, but putting us back in touch, I really appreciate it. And I will definitely want to follow up with you about your work in my class, and however I can support your future work. I look forward to it. So thank you very much, Clarissa Brooks, for joining us today.
Have a good one.
All right, you too. Take good care. And everybody else, thank you for joining us. All the remixers who were here live and those who will see this later, shout out to you as well. Peace if you're only if you're willing to fight for it, as Fred Hampton used to say. Please check out everything else on the platform, like, share, and subscribe, and make sure you have the bell clicked so that whenever we're doing whatever these things, you're ready and able to join us. All right. Thanks, everybody. Take good care. Peace. Once again, if you're willing to fight for it, as Fred used to say. Catch you next time here at I Mix What I Like. Thanks again, everybody. Peace.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. Everybody